So what sort of drew you to do what you do? Because I've interviewed, like, say, Sir Ranulph Fiennes, Art
Yeah,
Middleton's done quite a few things, adventure. I know it was obviously SBS, and so was SAS was Ranulph Fiennes. And I've interviewed
yeah,
Levison Wood, who's ex-military as well. But they've obviously started their sort of adventuring, per se. I mean, maybe not so much Anne, because Anne's obviously did TV stuff, but they're ex-military, where they started doing the adventuring after the military type things. But for yourself, you've never done any military type thing at all.
yeah, that's
Or maybe
right.
someone from North Wales go down this path, well, follow the path, if you don't mind the pun, of,
Yeah,
do the
yeah,
Yangtze River, or, Mongolia and Madagascar.
yeah, man. I tell you, it probably all started when I was just a youngster, just a kid. But the real idea of setting out and going traveling probably came at age 16, 16 or 17. For me, I went from high school to college, and it was the college course I was sort of doing, like an outdoor education where you get your avalanche awareness, your winter mountaineering, all of the basics type of thing. And it was probably that course that made me realize that after this college, I just couldn't stand the fact of going to university for me for another 3 years and being in a classroom, sort of being taught by the teacher. I believe many of us learn in many different ways, and the way I learn is through hands-on practical experience. So I thought to myself, why don't I go off an unusual path and actually skip university and find myself a job or multiple jobs, because I don't come from a financial background. All the money that I would make, I needed to earn it the hard way, of course. And so I thought, yeah, let's save up the cash, let's go off traveling. I'll be developing myself, I'll be learning more about myself, testing myself in certain awkward or dangerous scenarios. I'll be learning about the world we live in, about different cultures, different traditions in different countries. And ever since I had that idea, age 16, I just really wanted to make it happen. But it's a lot easier said than done. You know it yourself when you come up with this big plan, but it just doesn't seem possible. I'm 16. I've never boarded a plane on my own. I don't even, I'm working in a fish and chip shop. How on earth am I gonna make this happen? All sorts of things were going through my mind. But then I decided to break my goals down. Um, a list and broke down each of the goals of what I would need to target first. I found work as a lifeguard. I was working 240 hours a month. I was cycling every day to and from work along the hideous coast here of North Wales, blowing winds, rain against you all day, every day. And I was saving up that money. I set myself up kind of like a little dream board, that I had the world map with the routine. I had quotes going along the bottom of it. I had pictures of where I wanted to get to going along the top of it. So that's the first thing that I would see when I woke up. And I guess that's how it all started, just having that curiosity. There's no dark background. There's no military background, no financial background, just a curious kid, grafting hard, working that money, and wanting to get out there. And eventually I did set off at the tender age of 19. I set out with a friend and off we went. The rest is history.
Was that to Thailand first? Was that Thailand you did?
Yeah, the first trip we went to China, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's probably, what gave me the idea of Mission Yangtze. I sort of was in China. Me and my friend, we were only there for 2 weeks. And we left China for then Thailand. And when we look back at the map of China, we realized that we only just skirted along the edge, the different cities from Beijing, Shanghai, down to Hong Kong, etc. I thought, I've not traveled China. I can't say. It's a massive country, and I've just skirted, the tip of the iceberg. So I thought one day I would return. I didn't know when, and I didn't know what to do, but I just knew that I had unfinished business with China.
And obviously after that, you went and did Thailand for a few years doing your Thai boxing. Because I've got as I mentioned before to you, I've got a passion for Thai boxing. I've done it myself. But I'm older than you. I'm probably double your age, so I'm not as fit as you. I mean, I've seen your Instagram, your videos and stuff. So I'm nowhere near on par with you. But, I love it anyway. But
yeah, it's a good crack, isn't it? It's great fun. It's a good discipline as well.
But because obviously you're coming from North Wales as well, would you say that had you not being brought up in North Wales, you wouldn't have had this passion for travel and maybe even going to, like, say, Thailand and to do the Thai boxing?
I don't know. That's a good one. I think, when it comes down to motivation, I don't think it's any one particular thing that made me decide to travel. I would say it's lots of little things since a young age that played the part and helped put me in the different directions, and so, yeah, I guess it was the whole upbringing. It was the background. It was probably where I'm from as well. It was probably because, I'm on the coast. We've got the mountains. We have got lakes. It's a beautiful part of the world. We've got those horrible conditions, which I tried to use to my advantage to help train me up ahead of any expedition I take on abroad. So, it's a benefit really. So potentially, and in North Wales as well, it is people like their combat. In the UK in general, really, don't they? In the UK in general. And so I was doing more boxing here at a young age. It's only when I went to Thailand that I saw what those guys were doing. I was like, that's a whole different ball game. I just wanted to get involved with that.
Oh, so it was only when you went to Thailand you sort of got the passion for Thai boxing?
Yeah, I was doing boxing here in Wales, standard boxing. And so it was actually when I went to Thailand, when I was, the martial art of 8 limbs, and it's one of the world's most devastating martial arts. And I was just curious I always loved body movement. I've always been into calisthenics and fitness and training. It's a massive passion. That probably came before my adventure and my travels. I almost loved the discipline of the Muay Thai fighters as well. And I just wanted to get amongst it, test myself, and get more familiar with the different form of combat.
So were you out there kicking the crap out of some bamboo trees?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you do have to kill your nerve endings on your shit, as you know. And so I would get like logs and books, and I would bash my shins most evenings. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But I would bash my shins to try to kill the nerve endings. So when it came to kicking or blocking, it wasn't as painful, You try to kill your nerve endings so that there's no feeling there. I became pretty good at killing my nerve endings on my shit.
So
it's dark on your side, by the way. Shall I try to flip it around?
It's okay. It's all right. Yeah, I can see it's quite clear.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, that's right. You can see me okay?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at you and I'm like, that's really cool brightness. And then I'm like, the shadow is dark up there.
Yeah. It's all right, man. It's all right.
Wicked. No, that's cool.
Well, obviously, opting to choose Thai boxing is an extreme sport. To go from that to then doing some extreme as saying going to Mongolia and then after going to Madagascar, to do such things are quite extreme in themselves. You've obviously got that extreme sort of passion about you, I guess, to do something like that. Well, but to do both the sport and obviously the expedition you've done.
Yeah. You know what? It probably, where I see it as the true catalyst, the adventure that really allowed me to find my niche and to discover my passion was probably my first ever adventure, my first away from home adventure, which was, so I told you about me and my friend going to China for 2 weeks and then hopping over to Thailand. Well, we continued for the next few weeks, and me and my friend both found we were very much on the beaten track. We were sharing the same sort of photos, stories, experiences as the rest of the tourists. We weren't really doing anything new or different, which wasn't a bad thing because, I've made friends for life from meeting them on the tourist route. So that was a huge pro. But the con was, there's nothing new. There's no new experiences. And me and my friend, we left to create our own stories, to capture our own images, to do crazy stuff, not take the bus everywhere through the night so you're missing the beauty of the country. And I said to my friend, we're on a shoestring budget. We don't have very much funds, and we have been going through the funds drastically. At this point, we were in Cambodia and we were pretty much sulking on the Mekong riverbank, because of the amount of money that we had spent. We were pretty reckless. But I said, although we have a shoestring budget, we can still take on a pretty cool adventure. We don't need money to take on an adventure. And I suggested, how about we get, we purchase the most ridiculous bicycles we can find. and we cycled the entire length of Cambodia and Vietnam, all 1,100 plus miles of it. And my friend laughed, he was like, that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but I'm in, what bikes did you have in mind? And as he said that, there was this skinny little frail old lady, cycling this hideous looking bicycle, making all sorts of screeching noises. It looked like it was about to fall apart, collapse on her. But it looked like a bike we could afford. And I literally just said to my friend, perfect, that looks like a bike we can afford. Let's do it. Let's purchase 2 of them. And we did. Within hours, we purchased 2 bicycles for £10. We didn't have no pump, no puncture repair kit. We had no gears, no suspension. It was pretty reckless in terms of we had no lights, no reflective clothing, no helmet. We had a tent that we found out the hard way wasn't waterproof. We didn't have no map. We had no technology, no phone. We weren't plugging on social media. I wasn't into that. We were just doing it for the pure passion of it, for the love. Let's see how far we can get. And we set off, it took us over 2.5 weeks. The bikes broke about 17 times in total. The pedals would just fall off randomly as we're cycling uphill. And we were chased by dogs. We were hit by mopeds. We were dodged by lorries. The last day we cycled 39 hours straight. So it was all the way through the day, all the way through the night, all the way again through the following day. We were ruined. We looked so bad that we were turned down by 7 different hostels and guest houses. So we pretty much went over 45 hours with no sleep until some old lady took pity on us and allowed us to stay in a grotty little hostel. And that was it. That was the catalyst. Although we faced all of that, me and my friend Matt, we loved it. And we were like, this is our passion, and from then I just didn't want to stop. And from that point, the adventures kept building. I was doing quite reckless stuff. I went to Thailand then, and then I pretty much crossed the border illegally from Thailand into Myanmar with nothing but a machete through the jungle. I came across a Burmese hill tribe. They took us under their wing. They taught us how to survive in the jungle, how to hunt, how to gather, all of this amazing stuff. We were then trekking the Himalayas with no permit in north of India. We were taught how to pray if we come across the Pakistan army, because of course having no permit, they pretty much said, put your thumbs behind your ears and say, I think it was Allah Rigby repeatedly and go down on your knees. And so we were, it was a little bit sketchy, but we were young, stupid and reckless, 19. We were like, let's go. I look back now and I do think, what an idiot. But these were all catalysts, these were only small adventures, but they were growing and growing and growing until, as you said, I then did have to act on my previous plan, which I had in Wales. I was scuba diving here at the age of 17 before I set off the travels in the hope that I could find work abroad to help top up the funds. And I did. And like you said, for the next 2 years, I was living in Thailand as a master scuba diving instructor and a Muay Thai fighter. And if you win a fight, you get paid, enough to pay 2 or 3 months worth of accommodation. If you lose, you go home with nothing. So you have to train hard to make sure you don't lose. And that was my life for the next 2 years before it became quite restless and Mongolia creeped into my mind.
Right. Okay. Where about Thailand were you living?
I was living in Koh Tao and Koh Lipe.
Okay, I've been to Koh Samui in Bangkok. So
Koh Samui is right next to Koh Tao. Yeah.
Right.
Great place. I love Koh Samui. You've got like Koh Samui, Koh Phangan, which is the full moon party island, and then Koh Tao, which is the sort of typical scuba diving island.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I had
great fun, Tyler. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's crazy. In one word I can only use is crazy. You know what?
Yeah, I mean. Yeah. It's one of the, I always say, it can't be explained, it must be experienced.
Yeah, the one word I use is crazy, but I'm not good at titles. You live there longer than I, so.
When did you go?
Oh gosh, no, it was a while back now. It's about 20 years ago. No, 19 years ago, so a while back.
You would have experienced the better Thailand then, I reckon. I recently went back to top up some Muay Thai and wakeboarding, and it was a great place. I don't know if it's Thailand's changed or if it's that I've changed, but it wasn't quite the same. And it's a lot more expensive and more touristy. So, man, 20 years ago would have been the perfect time to go.
It was chaos. I went to watch a Muay Thai fight, or quite a few Muay Thai fights.
Was that in Bangkok?
No, in Koh Samui.
In Koh Samui. Oh yeah, they got some big ones there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was an experience. It was just surreal. You had a lot of people that were visiting from, say, France. I think it was. It was like a Muay Thai group from France, and they were fighting against some of the locals.
Right.
And it was a bit 50-50. Sometimes a French one, sometimes a Thai one.
Oh yeah.
It was an experience. It was.
Yeah, it's a wild martial art, isn't it? Yeah. It's not even a sport, is it? It's not even the Olympics. No. By the Thai Navy, wasn't it? And it's just made to try to or kill your opponent as quick as possible.
Hello.
People are like, yep, we don't associate our brand with that sport.
So.